Hi, welcome to my channel, America Teacher 5th grade, where we learn all things about 5th grade. Today we are studying the New England Colonies in Chapter 5. So excited that you're here, and let's start on our journey. We're doing lesson 1, and here's our timeline up on top. In 1630, the Massachusetts Bay is founded. In 1636, Roger Williams founds Providence, and in 1675, King Philip's War begins. What to know? Why did people start colonies in New England? Important vocabulary words are charter, and let's go ahead and try that one in context over here. They had a charter or official paper from the King of England. An official paper, so charter. Maybe you've heard of a charter school. They've got official permission, official paperwork to be a school. Dissent, expel. Do you know what that word means? Consent, sedition. That's kind of a grown-up word. What I would call a college word. And frontier. Important people for this lesson are John Winthrop, Roger Williams, and Anne Hutchinson. And important places are Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. Or Hampshire. Not really sure. I don't know. I always thought it was Shire. I guess it's kind of from The Hobbit, if you've heard it. I went from the Shire. Here we go, and our focus skill is how to summarize with key facts and details and try to summarize it all into 1 or 2 sentences. And we've been reading some summaries, so I think you should be good with that. Let me go ahead and straighten out this book just a little bit. Okay, you are there. Remember, that is second person because of the word you. You walk past your small village and look out at the sea. 10 years ago, you and your family traveled here from England. At first, you were sad to leave England, but you have learned to adapt to your new life. You know that life in this colony requires hard work and a strong spirit. Yesterday, you heard that new settlers from England will soon arrive. You hope that they are ready for all the challenges they will face. And here is kind of, again, like a reenactment of Plymouth Plantation. And so it says Plymouth Colony, founded in 1620. It was the first colony in New England, because Jamestown, Virginia was what we consider to be in the middle colonies. And if you remember, they were supposed to arrive in Virginia, but because they realized that they were not under Virginia and that therefore they weren't under the colonial rule, they created the Mayflower Compact and had their own self-government. So this says the Great Puritan Migration from 1630 to 1643. More than 20,000 Puritans left Europe to settle in New England. These people, maybe they didn't totally agree with the Catholic Church. They didn't totally agree with the Church of England, definitely with how that one started. But they were strong believers in the Bible, and they all came here. And again, as I said, they all wanted to practice religion their way, and yet when they got here, they weren't allowing other people to practice religion their way. So I do believe, though, that there are a few places in here where they did have freedom of religion. The Puritans arrive. In 1628, a small group of settlers arrived in North America. So right off the bat, I'm like, okay, this is about 8 years after the Pilgrims. So I'd like you to kind of, in your head, while we're reading, think about what was the same and what was different. We're going to compare and contrast these two religious groups. They had a charter or official paper from the King of England. It gave the settlers permission to start a colony in New England. There they built a village called Salem. A new start. I'm going to go ahead and push this up. So if you like that picture, I apologize. Here we go. Like the Pilgrims, these settlers came to New England to practice their religious beliefs. They also came to start farms and businesses. Unlike the Pilgrims, the new settlers did not want to break away from the Church of England. Oh, so they didn't break away from the Church of England. They wanted to change some religious practices to make the church more pure. Okay, so there's like, oh, we're still part of the Church of England, but there's a few things we want to do different. For this reason, they were called Puritans. In 1630, John Winthrop led a second group of Puritans to settle the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Winthrop hoped their settlement would be an example of Christian living. In a sermon, he said, "We shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us." When I think of Salem, I don't know if I really think about Christian living. But that'll be interesting. Here we go. Winthrop's group chose to build their city upon a hill south of Salem, near the mouth of Charles River. They named their settlement Boston, after a town in England. Most early settlements in New England were built along the Atlantic coast to make it easier for colonists to get supplies from England trading ships. And so here's a picture of what John Winthrop looked like. He's a very distinguished fellow. It says, why did the Puritans found the Massachusetts Bay Colony? So, according to the text, the Puritans founded the Massachusetts Bay Colony to be an example of Christian living. All right, let's turn the page. I feel like I should have little music every time I turn the page. That's something that I had when I was a little girl. Here we go. New ideas, new settlements. In 1630, John Winthrop was elected governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He and the other Puritan leaders kept strict control over life in the colony. They did not welcome people whose beliefs were different from their own. They thought that dissent or disagreement might hurt their society. So what does dissent mean? It means to disagree. Okay, so like we even hear about that on the Supreme Court. There's 9 Supreme Court justices, and the majority is a 5-4. If a 5-4, then that becomes the new law of the land. But if there were 4 or 3 or 2 or even 1, they usually have the person who disagrees write a dissenting opinion. Okay, this is why I didn't vote for it. And they just kind of want that on the record, but there they still agree that if 5 people pass it, then it's okay. Here, they just don't want any disagreements. Okay, they're like, we don't want to get into fights. That's not the right way. So Roger Williams. Some colonists disagreed with the Puritan leaders. One of those colonists was a minister in Salem named Roger Williams. Williams often stated his beliefs in his sermons. He and his followers believed that their church should be separate from the colonial government. They also believed that Puritan leaders should not punish people for having different beliefs. Okay, yeah, so it's one thing to say, all right, let's just agree to disagree. That's another thing to say, oh, we're going to lock you up for disagreeing, or we're going to banish you or exile you, or not shop at your store. I don't know. I suppose that's... Okay, let's see. Williams also disagreed with Puritan leaders over their treatment of Native Americans. So if they were... truly Christian, then you would think that they would be getting along with their um, with the Native Americans, and I don't know if they were. He said that the settlers ought to live in peace with the Native Americans. That sounds agreeable. Winthrop and the other Puritan leaders decided to punish Williams for his dissent. They held a trial and found him guilty of spreading new and dangerous opinions. So we need to be careful of that today. Sometimes when I listen to the news, I hear opinions, which may or may not be true, put across as facts. And so we need to be able to tell the difference between facts and opinions. But even though they realized that these weren't facts, that they were opinions, they were new and dangerous. And so in 1635, the leaders voted to expel Williams from Massachusetts or force him to leave. Okay, so he doesn't have the charter, he doesn't have the royal decree, and he doesn't have permission to express a dissenting opinion. Right here it says Rogers Williams was expelled from Massachusetts, but the Narragansett tribe gave him shelter. So this was why he, certainly they were kinder than the Puritans were. Here we go. And so this is showing him receiving shelter from him, He's like, who's going to feed me? Don't have a... So here we go. Anne Hutchinson held weekly meetings in her home. They were seen as a challenge to the authority of the men who led the Puritan church. So she doesn't necessarily have a dissenting opinion. She just happens to be female. And unfortunately, that wasn't viewed well either. Williams and his family moved southwest of Boston to what is now Narragansett Bay. For a short time, they lived near the coast with the Narragansett tribe. Many of William's followers joined him there. So a lot of them said, well, if he's not there, then I don't want to be a part of this. And they agreed more with his opinions. I don't know how the Native Americans felt about more of the Europeans showing up. Here we go. In 1636, Williams bought land from the Narragansett and founded a settlement that he called Providence. And today we probably know that as Providence, Rhode Island. And so I do want to point out that he purchased it, and I don't know if they knew that they were doing this or if it was renting. But I think that perhaps there was a better understanding between those two. Williams organized the settlement based on the consent or agreement of the people and cooperation with the Native Americans. The settlers could follow almost any religion they chose. So that's kind of cool. I think that's one of the first examples of that. I don't know if we'll talk more about Jamestown maybe later. I don't think that they were really focused on religion at all. I think they were just focused on making money over there. Anne Hutchinson. The leaders of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Whoops, let me move this up. Let me go ahead and read this. Oh, I did. Okay, so we're going to move that picture up so we can see all of this. The leaders of the Massachusetts Bay Colony faced another challenge to their authority or power from a colonist named Anne Hutchinson. Hutchinson questioned the teachings of the Puritan ministers. At this time in history, women rarely spoke out against men. Hutchinson's actions angered many Puritan leaders. In 1637, they tried her on charges of sedition. So again, notice that's T-I-O-N, but here it's pronounced S-H-U. Most people leave out the H-N, okay, when they're spelling it phonetically. There we go. So they tried her on charges of sedition or speaking in ways that cause others to work against the government. They're like saying what you are saying is not, it's not there. And I believe that that's also happened to a group of people just seriously within the last 4 years or so. They were charged with sedition or working against the government. Hutchinson was found guilty and expelled from the colony. You can agree if that's right or wrong. And let's see, with her family and several followers, Hutchinson left to start a settlement on an island near Providence, because remember, they are now allowing people to do whatever religion they want. So she's on an island, though. That settlement later joined William's settlement under the charter that formed the colony of Rhode Island in 1647. So it sounds like they said, hey, we still want to be official and to count, so they started their own colony. And so it says, why did Roger Williams wish to start a new settlement? So I would say, according to the text, Roger Williams wished to start a new settlement based on the consent of the people and cooperation with the Native Americans. How great that they wanted to also work with the Native Americans. Let's just look at this picture, this beautiful picture right here. It says the Connecticut River flows through present-day New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. Just look how gorgeous that is. All those beautiful trees and the animals. Okay, let's also check out this map. It says regions. Which of the New England colonies had the smallest amount of land? So it says present day border. The Abenaki is a Native American tribe who is mentioned here. Up here is the Pennacook. Okay. There's the Narragansett. And so look, here's Rhode Island. Connecticut's in orange. New Hampshire's yellow. Massachusetts is here. I don't even know if it's touching all the way up here. What is now Maine was also called Massachusetts. Okay. So, but it says which one is the smallest. Definitely it looks like the green is the smallest, right? So, Rhode Island. And there's Providence right next to it. And let's see, there's Plymouth. And where's Boston? Here's Boston. Boston is north of Plymouth, but maybe it's closer to Providence. I don't know, but they are definitely now outside of that. All right, New England grows. That's our heading. Let's keep reading. Other settlers moved south from Massachusetts to find better farmland. Some left the poor rocky soil of coastal New England for the fertile Connecticut River Valley. Other colonies. Most early Connecticut settlers came to find good farmland, but many also came because of their religious beliefs. One of these settlers was a Puritan minister named Thomas Hooker. He left Massachusetts because he disagreed with the ways its leaders ruled. Hooker and his followers founded Hartford. In 1636, Hartford and other nearby settlements joined to form the colony of Connecticut. And there it is, nice and bold. Here it is if you want to double check how I pronounced it. Connecticut. There you go. In 1639, the leaders of the Connecticut colony wrote the Fundamental Orders, a plan of government. These orders let voters elect their own leaders. Again, more self-government. That was really key back in the day, and that goes back to 1639. However, the only people who could vote were white men who owned land. I suppose, but it's a start. Other colonists looking for economic opportunities moved north of Massachusetts. In 1623, a Scottish settler named David Thompson set out to start a fishing settlement. In 1679, the settlement later became known as Portsmouth. The settlement, later known as Portsmouth, joined with others to form the colony of New Hampshire. And so here's Portsmouth on the map, and that was started by a Scottish settler. He was like, people need fish, it's a big deal. Go there, make some money. Summarize, why did farmers settle in the Connecticut River Valley? According to the text, farmers settled in the Connecticut River Valley because, and this time you finish it. All right, let's see. Growth brings conflict. As the colonists spread across New England, they settled where Native Americans already lived and hunted. In the Connecticut River Valley, fighting broke out between the colonists and the Pequot tribe. The Pequot wanted to stop the colonists from taking over their lands. Definitely, I mean, if you remember, these were farming people too, okay? They all weren't just hunting and gathering. They're like, no, we're farming and we were here first. In 1637, the colonists and the Pequot began attacking each other's settlements. The conflict became known as the Pequot War. The colonists defeated the Pequot and the tribe was forced to split up. So they said, well, there's not enough land for all of us, so they kind of had to separate. What a shame. Okay, arguments over land. The settlers and the Native Americans had different ideas about land ownership. The Mohegan, Wampanoag, Narragansett, and other tribes believed that no one person could own land. The English, however, believed that if they claimed an area, the land was theirs. The settlers expected Native American tribes to leave the land. They're like, we claimed it. I don't know. I think they're just cruising for a bruising, if you say. It says, Metacomet, known to the English as King Phillip, was the leader of the Wampanoag. When more English settlers moved onto their tribal lands, Metacomet decided that the Native Americans had to unite against the colonists. He said, and now here's a quote, so that's kind of what we would call more of a primary. It says, I am resolved not to see the day when I have no country. And so I think he had a good idea of uniting all of the tribes. Let's see if that worked for them. King Philip's War. In 1675, arguments over land again led to war between the colonists and the Native Americans. The colonists named the war King Philip's War. It began when Native Americans attacked the town of Swansea in Rhode Island. In return, the settlers destroyed a nearby Native American village. Over the next year, King Philip's War spread as far north as present-day Maine and as far west as Connecticut. In the end, both sides suffered terrible losses. Among the colonists, 1 of every 16 men died in battle. At least 3,000 Native Americans, including Metacomet, were killed. Some tribes were nearly wiped out. Some tribes were nearly wiped out, and most were forced to give up their lands. I'm just going to say, somebody asked me in a more recent conflict, which side did I want to win? And I just kind of feel like, whether you call it a conflict or a war, nobody wins. Nobody wins. You can say that there's, I don't know, even after World War II, I mean, how many people lost? You can say that the right side won, but at what cost? That was a terrible, terrible cost. And the only reason I believe we got in is because we realized, the numbers might even be more than what it did cost. All right. Colonists soon moved onto those lands. Some settled in western Connecticut, while others moved to present-day Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and Maine. The frontier, or the lands beyond the areas, settled by colonists was being pushed west too. By 1700, more than 90,000 colonists lived in New England. So, and that's just New England. That's not including the other ones. So you can definitely see how they went from like, yeah, we'll be happy to help you, to, no, this isn't going to end well for us. Reading check. Summarize. What were the two major effects of King Philip's War? Go ahead and restate that. Tell it to an adult. Okay, here's a summary. I'm going to read this one. See if you can come up with your own. English settlers came to New England and built colonies along the Atlantic coast. Many lived by their religious beliefs, and some founded new colonies. Over time, more settlers arrived, forcing Native Americans to leave their lands. It says, a Niantic warrior. The Niantic and several other tribes did not take part in King Philip's War. And they said no. And hopefully the settlers knew, like, they just didn't say, oh, all Indians are bad, but they knew which ones were kind of like, no, we're going to be Switzerland and we're just going to stay out of this. Okay. Let's see, review. What to know? Why did people start colonies in New England? 2. Vocabulary. Use the term descent in a sentence about Roger Williams. I'm going to say try to use 3 to 5 in a paragraph. We go geography. How did the physical features of New England affect colonists' decisions about where to settle? 4. Critical thinking. In what ways did the actions of John Winthrop, Roger Williams, Anne Hutchinson, and Thomas Hooker show the importance of religious beliefs in early New England government? Okay, I had 4 different people, 4 different ideas. 5. Draw a map. I feel like this would be a fun activity. If you have graph paper, do it on that. That'll make it even easier. Add parallel lines or do the ABC 1, 2, 3 grid. Here we go. Make a map that shows the locations of the New England colonies. Your map should also list the date each colony was founded and who founded it. Okay, so you can have your own special key for that. Summarize. On a separate sheet of paper, copy and complete this graphic organizer. Okay, here are 2 key facts. Metacomet asked Native Americans to unite, and Native Americans and settlers argue over who owns land. So can you put those 2 into a compound sentence? And just create one there. All right, Anne Hutchinson. We're talking about fairness, why character counts. Says, in what ways did Anne Hutchinson struggle to be treated fairly? And I really kind of appreciate the fact that she really didn't just sit there and take it. She's like, fine, I'll leave. Go, you condemn me for speaking what in my conscience I know to be truth. Okay. So again, it's her opinion, but it's still her beliefs, and that is why we should be respectful of other people's beliefs, because for them that is truth, and I wouldn't even just say her truth. Says Anne Hutchinson spoke those words at her trial in 1637. She stated her right to have her own religious beliefs and challenged the power of the Massachusetts Bay Colony's leaders. Hutchinson was born in England in 1591. Her father often spoke out against the Church of England. And so remember the Puritans, they're like, no, we are still members of the Church of England. We're just more pure than all of those who are staying behind. And so she felt like she had a different way to be more pure. At the age of 21, she married William Hutchinson, and together they would raise 15 children. I'm like, oh my goodness. Wow. No wonder these colonies grew so quick. In 1634, the Hutchinson family moved to Boston. In Boston, Hutchinson shared her beliefs at prayer meetings. She said that people did not need to follow church laws to please God. The colony's leaders put her on trial for breaking the law and expelled her from Massachusetts. Wonder if her husband went with her. In 1638, Hutchinson and her family, that's comforting, and followers settled in what became the Rhode Island colony. She later moved to what is now New York, where she was killed in a Native American raid in 1643. Hutchinson's struggle for religious freedom set an example for others in her time. I wonder if she had stayed where she was, where they got along with the Narragansett. If that would have happened. Anyways, time, born in 1591. So she was like in her 40s when Hutchinson moved to Boston and starts holding religious meetings. And in 1637, just 3 years later, Hutchinson is put on trial and expelled from Massachusetts. And then less than 10 years later, just 6-7 years later, she died in that. But so nice that she is remembered as for speaking her truth. Okay, I know you're like, oh yay, we're done, but we have this, and I feel like this is so important. Please stick with me. Have some self-discipline. If you have to put it on pause and come back to it in a half hour, an hour, in a day, do that. But this is super important, so please come back to it, because it is so important to be able to tell the difference from fact, from opinion, and I don't know if people should be punished for their opinions unless, of course, their behavior, breaks the social norms. Here we go. Fact from opinion, because of their opinions. Why it matters. Recognizing fact and opinion helps you better understand what you read. Learn. A fact is a statement that can be proved or supported by evidence. A fact is true for everyone. An opinion is a statement that tells what a person feels or believes. An opinion is held by one person or group. Writers often combine facts and opinions. Readers must pay attention to notice the difference. Here are some ways in which you can check to see whether a statement is a fact or an opinion. So pay attention. Fact. See whether the statement is true in your own experience or in other people's experiences. That's still a little tricky, but could be, well, if I have 2 apples and you have 2 apples, together we have 4 apples. Trusted sources of information, such as an encyclopedia or an atlas. A lot of times now we can say, oh, Google it, and everybody can be a fact checker. But you still need to be very, very careful about what sources you go to check your facts. I would still go to like Britannica or, I don't know, Wikipedia is a little iffy because too many people can change things on it, but I have to admit, when I'm in a pinch, sometimes I go there first, but then I still back it up with something else. So if 2 sources or more support that, then you can feel pretty confident about it. Opinion. Look, they'll say, oh, cheetahs can run, 70 miles per hour. Well, then that's a fact, because that can be looked up, it can be proved, you can clock them. But if you said, hey, I think rabbits are the fastest animals on earth because you've never even heard of a cheetah, well, that's an opinion. And it may be, again, based on your experience, but it can't necessarily be proven unless you look it up like in an encyclopedia. So opinions cannot be proved or supported by evidence. Some statements contain clues that they are opinions. Words such as best, worst, excellent, and terrible are often clues to opinion statements, and I would pay attention to that. There we go. These are the best people in the world. These are the worst people in the world. Okay, those are definitely opinions. Okay, this is a most excellent adventure. This is a terrible journey. Okay, maybe up to that point for you, but may or may not be. Here we go. Practice. Read the passages on the next page. They are from the diary of Samuel Sewall, an early Massachusetts colonist. Decide whether each passage states a fact, an opinion, or both. If a sentence contains both a fact and an opinion, tell which part is which. Farming families. Well, let's move that up. And it says, farming families were the best workers. Is this a fact or an opinion? What do you think? I'm going to tell you, I believe it's an opinion because of the word best. You could say hard workers. That could be true, but I don't know if they're the best workers. You might say, no, fishermen were the best workers, or I don't know, politicians are the best workers. Definitely an opinion. April 14th, 1685. A ship arrives from Newcastle and brings news of the death of Charles II and proclamation of James II king. Well, I'm going to say that there are lots of facts there. You just really can't dispute dates. And somebody died. It's a fact. It can be proven. And a proclamation that somebody else became king. That's also a fact that can be proven. Definitely fact. Okay, number 2. May 13th, 1685. Mr. Cotton Mather is ordained pastor of the Second Church by his father. What do you think? Hopefully you said fact. Okay, so there's definite date that can be proved, and it can also be proved if there were witnesses and it was recorded in the church journals, then that happened. Okay, it's a fact that it happened. Number 3, January 7th, 1686, Mr. Moody, the minister, preached excellently. A very snowy day kept many from going to church. Can you find the facts? This one does have an opinion. Which part is the opinion? Hopefully you recognize the preached excellently. You can prove that he did preach on that day and that he was the minister of the church. But maybe somebody didn't like his topic and they didn't think it was an excellent. Maybe somebody said, you know what, he had too many ums and ahs, and I don't know, or he pounded his fist on the pulpit too much. I didn't like that. A very snowy day. Could have been snow that kept people from going to church. Could have been cold. Depends on what you call snowy. I don't know. I'm sure it did snow. Maybe that kept them. That one's a little bit trickier. 4. July 27th, 1686. Mr. Stoughton prays excellently and makes a notable speech at the opening of the court. So again, you can prove that Mr. Stoughton prayed on July 27th, 1686. That part would be fact. Which part is the opinion? If you said that he prayed excellently and that it was a notable speech, then yes, both of those parts are opinion. Okay, it is a fact that it was at the opening of the court. Apply right 3 facts. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my voice here. Let me move this up a little bit more so you can get all of that. Write 3 facts that you have learned so far in this chapter. Then write 3 opinions about what you have learned. Like, I think it's most interesting. That would be an opinion. Or I thought this part was the coolest. That would be an opinion, okay? Or, there's lots of facts in there for you to choose, but which part's the opinion? Anyways, you stuck with me. Great job. Great self-discipline. Keep working on that self-reliance, self-respect, respect for others. Learn to respect other people's opinions. Learn to be agree to disagree. Learn. That's really what we're doing. Here we go. Remember to be kind when you do dissent. And hopefully nobody will put you in jail for your dissenting views. All right. Because yes, that would be dictatorial and tyrannical. So know that I think you're an amazing human being. This is why I'm here. These are the things I want you to really know. And I just wish you the very best in life. Thank you. And thank you for being with me today. Have a great day.